Me, the country conservative, going live to New York right now. We're going to watch what's going on with the police. Pay attention to this.
Relying on as well with Fox 5 New York. Take a look at this. I'm going to drop this here. That is the Lenko Bear. That's what it's known as. That's what it's referred to, that the NYPD have used. It's a zoomed out vantage point of how officers are gaining access and entry into Hamilton Hall. Back out live to Hamilton Hall here.
Now, this is something that we've come up with, that they were holding janitors hostage in here. Sorry I didn't get on here earlier, but I was, after my live stream tonight, I went upstairs and was doing some stuff and wanted to see what was going on. Then I just said, this is getting interesting.
All right, so and you can see there the reason you're seeing some of these officers with cameras so they can document as they take into custody these student demonstrators. Okay, look at this. You see there on the hip of so many of these officers, those are the plastic zip ties that they will use to handcuff the student demonstrators who have occupied the campus building. All right, so remember, all week we have shown you scenes like this of law enforcement moving on student demonstrators and arresting them. We saw it on the campus of UT Austin. We saw it on the campus even today near Tampa at the University of South Florida. We saw tear gas, flashbangs being deployed as well. What we have not seen yet in this entire protest movement are law enforcement officers making access and gaining entry forcibly there. I say forcibly because they broke the window there to get in into a campus building. This is a first in the protest movement. The protest movement started here at Columbia University 2 weeks ago, gained traction on campuses nationwide. And you could argue this is the culmination of what we are seeing after countless threats by university administrators like President Minouche Shafik, who warned students would be suspended for violating campus policies, that some would be expelled for violating campus policies, that, remember, that 2 p.m. Eastern deadline for many members of the tent encampment on the lawn in front of Butler Library to vacate. Remember, that deadline came and went, the encampment still up. And from what I understand, the reason why some of these student demonstrators occupied Hamilton Hall very, very late last night was to move inside of a building so they could stay here on campus and double down and entrench themselves further and riling up university administrators. And so you really see this clash here with the university administrators, the students themselves, outside agitators, and now law enforcement here. So we're going to keep reading some of the reporting to suggest what has gone on here, and because there's so much context to get to. So you're watching so many of these law enforcement officials gain access, make entry inside there of Hamilton Hall on Columbia's campus. What I want to read to you is this, and this has to do on Capitol Hill, but it's related and it's important. Because the House Judiciary Chairman, Jim Jordan, the Republican, and other GOP committee members, they sent letters today to Secretary of State Antony Blinken, to DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, questioning if there are national security risks posed by some of these anti-Israel protesters, and if student visas are being revoked, and if they're not being revoked, whether they should start being revoked. So they sent 2 letters, Jim Jordan did, and members of the committee, to Blinken and Mayorkas today, requesting information on those very questions with a deadline of May 14th. In the letter to Mayorkas, lawmakers are asking for information by that date related to the number of non-citizens, including those with student visas, who have endorsed or espoused terrorist activity during some of these anti-Israel protests. That is somewhat tangential to the movement here, especially there on Columbia's campus. All right, we have more of a zoomed out vantage point there. You can see many NYPD officers standing by in the foreground. They zoom back in, many going in to arrest some of these student demonstrators. who are holed up in there on this campus. And you can see them there. We have not seen any students yet come out. And remember, we did see, I'm going to show you another shot. We did see those buses. All right, so now the picture is becoming clear because I was over this scene last Monday on another campus at NYU. The buses came in, the NYPD buses came in. They are being deployed to transport the student demonstrators who will inevitably be arrested, and they will be detained and processed. That is why those buses are outside the campus of Columbia University. You see there, this is one of the main entrances to Columbia. Let's go back there live. More NYPD officers gaining access into the building, into Hamilton Hall, to arrest the what they would call occupiers in the building.
Now, let me know what you guys think about this. And on Twitter, X, anywhere, wherever you guys are at. Let me know what you guys think of these terrorist sympathizers that are holding janitors hostage, or were, and now they're trying to, you just saw the police go in.
All right, so I want to offer some context as well, because remember when we brought you some of these law enforcement actions on places, on campuses that are private institutions, like Columbia is, like NYU is, law enforcement has to be invited. They have to be requested by university administrators because it is a private institution, because it is not a public institution. And so university leaders have to request this law enforcement action. That is what we have learned throughout the course of this entire protest movement here. All right, and you're going to see very, very soon here, I'm going to put up two shots that we have. You're going to see very soon here, in the lower right hand of your screen, I would imagine, some of these student demonstrators who are going to be in handcuffs, leaving Columbia University's Hamilton Hall after being arrested. I would imagine you're going to be seeing that very soon after it looks like, let's take this live and full yet again, it looks like all of the NYPD officers who have been dispatched to do the arresting of these students have gone in. And so we're waiting now for the students themselves in the zipper tie handcuffs to come out of Hamilton Hall. And so that is what we await. We have that live picture. I believe that is going to be this camera that we have there. And so we'll keep that up as well.
This is a travesty. And these people, the ones that have been arrested already, have been allowed out with no bail, none whatsoever. Released the same day, and the charges were dropped.
All right, so this is what you can see right now. NYPD officials have corralled the media. That's what it appears that we are watching at the moment. They have corralled the media behind this NYPD police bus here, no doubt so they can catch a glimpse of some of the student detainees who will be ferried out of Hamilton Hall in handcuffs. Presumably, we have not seen that yet. I would imagine that is going to happen. It seems like an NYPD media liaison is leading some of these press members to a better spot to catch a glimpse of some of these arrests being made here. So all the action right now that you've been watching for the last 20, 25 minutes, all the action from what we can tell is happening inside of Hamilton Hall. Okay, this is the first time we have seen some of these student demonstrators arrested. That gentleman wearing a Columbia hoodie, giving the peace sign. We do not have audio on this. We're not going to bring the audio up because viewer discretion is advised. And so you can see there NYPD officers pushing the media back. And so it seems like we now have official confirmation that arrests have been made. The media is trying to get them. These detainees will be put on these buses and they'll be taken to be processed to the nearest local NYPD precinct.
And they're let
this
out
comes
immediately
24 hours,
bail.
almost 24 hours.
No charges.
After students in an unknown number, I'm not entirely sure of the total number of students, occupied Hamilton Hall. They carried out furniture. They barricaded furniture against entries. They broke windows. This was after that 2 p.m. Eastern deadline to vacate the tent encampment came and went. We also know Columbia had said that some of these students have been suspended. They threatened some of the Hamilton Hall occupiers with expulsion. That has not been confirmed just yet. Whether or not any students have been expelled due to these protests here. All right, we do have some reporting in from our Fox 5 New York colleagues. It looks like we have a lull in some of the activity on Columbia's campus. Let's take some of this right now. All right, want to put up this tweet from Fox 5 New York's Teresa Priolo. She says this, all right, we were correct. That was the campus. City College protests right now, 9:30. It's right now 9:42 there in the Big Apple. City buses going in front of this video. Priolo captured there something on fire on the campus of City College. We have another tweet as well. Let's put that up, I believe, from Fox 5 New York's Linda Schmidt. All right, so it looks like protesters are burning flags, possibly flares on the campus of City College in New York. These are storied institutions in the city of Manhattan. Linda Schmidt says the NYPD moving in to take back Hamilton Hall. We have brought you those scenes as well. Let's go back out live to those scenes. Here we have it. All right, you can see there NYPD officers standing by to the gates. This is on the back side. This is on Amsterdam. And you see there NYPD media liaisons pushing back the media because I would imagine in a very, very soon, you're going to see many of these student demonstrators who occupied Hamilton Hall this very time last night come out in handcuffs and be put on these buses there to be transported to some of these NYPD precincts to be processed for criminal trespass. The media there rounded up and corralled. All right, there you see the media. All right, so we're going to keep this shot. We have Linda Schmidt on the scene there.
But the problem is that this Fox News is trying to make it out to be something big.
We are refraining from bringing up the audio because viewer discretion is advised. All right, we have a different vantage point.
Because
let's take
yesterday's arrest,
all right, so now you can
all released,
get a better glimpse
no bail,
of how much law enforcement is on the scene. You also get a better glimpse, too, of some of these demonstrators who are in handcuffs, and they are waiting to board these buses to be transported.
Let me know what you guys think.
So that is further down from this vantage point that we have. Remember, we also have this vantage point as well from the back side of the building. So that's the back side of the building. NYPD officers went in through the back. We also have the vantage point here from the front there.
Now I put a link in here for anybody if anybody's in New York, that's on X or Facebook, that wants to come on here and give us some updates on what's going on, please click that link and it'll bring you into my stream.
All right, Andrew Kraft back here. I'm wondering whether or not we're going to get some type of update from NYPD today on camera. Remember, we heard from NYPD officials. We heard from New York City Mayor Eric Adams earlier today in a press conference with the NYPD. So we'll have to see whether or not that's in the offing for tonight. That remains to be seen. That's the question I have. All right, so it remains to be seen whether or not we'll also get a statement in from university administrators. Remember, the president of Columbia University, Manoush Shafiq, is under a lot of pressure. Some House Republicans are calling for her to resign over her mishandling of this, or her alleged mishandling of this. Remember, the last day of classes was yesterday. And so now students will be studying for their final exams. Remember, commencement activities are still planned for May the 15th.
Okay, while you were watching this, while he's running his mouth about the thing, Joe Biden is nowhere to be found. He is in Delaware, hiding from the mainstream fake news media and everything that's going on around here. The president of this university is hiding, not doing a thing. They're telling them that they're going to be expelled, but these kids have been released from the police. All the arrests that they've had, charges been dropped, and nothing's happening to them. So this is what I'm telling you about that's going on here, that even though they're making a big deal about this being the arrest being made, nothing's happened to these kids. But we'll get back into here and listen to this. But if you have any comments, leave some comments in the chat, and the links are in there if you want. If anybody's in New York that's watching this that wants to come in and give us an update, click on the link and I'll put you on my live stream. Now we'll go back to this.
Broke down. Columbia saying they were not going to budge on some of the main demands, the primary demands from these demonstrators, one of which is to divest. Well, what does that mean? That means divest. They want the university to divest from its investment portfolio in its endowment of any entity or business that has ties to Israel. That is what that means. The university would not do that. They said as much. And so that was a key demand not being met by the university to some of these student agitators. All right, so we have yet another live vantage point as well. I believe this is Linda Schmidt's shot there on the other backside of the building. All right, we see more NYPD officers making their way down this street here. Not entirely sure what street this is. They're now running here. We have another vantage point. Let's take it here. You can see as the NYPD are moving in to clear out or at least assist with some of these demonstrators who have been arrested.
As we're watching this, you guys should let me know what you think about this and just leave a comment in the chat section and I'll be watching. But like I said again, nothing's happened to these kids, and tomorrow we'll get another.
All right, so we're monitoring all of this here. I want to come back on camera as we approach the top of the next hour. And so I'm Andrew Kraft. Thanks so much for being with us here as we guide you through these incredible scenes coming out of New York City tonight on the Upper West Side, outside the gates of Columbia University, but also inside the campus itself here as we watched NYPD officers make entry into Hamilton Hall, NYPD buses on the scene there to inevitably transport some of these student demonstrators. And so you can see there some of these buses, they're leaving or maybe they're moving from the scene. Not entirely sure what's going on there. We also have a live vantage point outside the gates of Columbia. And you can also see the media. They are kind of corralled in. Maybe some of these are just your everyday New Yorkers as well who are trying to get a glimpse of the melee, of the activity. And so let's set the stage. Let's set the scene. This is happening at Columbia University, yes, but it's also been happening at places like NYU, City College, George Washington University, Johns Hopkins University. I'm moving from east to west. The University of Michigan, the University of Minnesota, the University of Central Florida, the University of South Florida, the University of Texas at Austin, also USC, UCLA, and so many other campuses nationwide. But this is quite the culmination of almost 2 weeks of activity there as protesters took over the lawn in front of Butler Library, setting up tent encampments, which is against Columbia University policy.
But yet they do nothing.
That is what is at stake here. Now, remember, many of these student demonstrators and their supporters claim their First Amendment free speech rights are being violated. The university says that these demonstrators have the right to protest, have the right of free speech. So the university would say you got to do it within policy. All right, so we are hearing from Columbia University. We are learning that they have issued some type of statement. We'll get that to you in just a moment. This is the statement they issued earlier this morning from Ben Chang. He's a university spokesperson. He goes on to say students occupying the building face expulsion. So that is a threat of expulsion. We'll see if the university follows through on that.
It's a threat. No, they won't.
All right, you have some of these NYPD officers kind of going in the gates there. So I'm not entirely sure. We have not seen kind of a slew of students yet come out. That remains to be seen. Remember, we don't know how many students occupied Hamilton Hall. We just don't have that figure. All right, so Ben Chang goes on to say in the statement from this morning, students who did not commit to the terms we offered are now being suspended. Those students will be restricted from all academic and recreational spaces and may only access their individual residence. Seniors will be ineligible to graduate. It goes on to say this is about responding to the actions of the protesters, not their cause. Also, as we said yesterday, disruptions on campus have created a threatening environment for many of our Jewish students and faculty and a noisy distraction that interferes with teaching, learning, and preparing for final exams and contributes to a hostile environment in violation of Title VI. It ends by saying the safety of our community remains our top priority. So that is how we have been covering this throughout the course of not only the last 2 weeks, but tonight as well. We have some of our reporters standing by on the scene, kind of outside the perimeter of Columbia University. So possibly we may be hearing from the NYPD. I'm not entirely sure on that. Don't hold me to that. But that is what happened when the NYPD moved in last time. A week and a half ago, they had a press conference. They announced more than 100 students and people were arrested. So I would imagine maybe the NYPD will do something similar. Remember, New York City Mayor Eric Adams had a press conference with the NYPD, a joint one earlier today. All right, let's zoom in here. We have another vantage point. All right, you can see there the gates. It looks like NYPD officers are communicating to the media something or other. I would imagine, though, that many of these student demonstrators will come out of these gates, board the buses. That's what they are waiting for here. Let's see if we can listen to the natural sound on the ground. Stand by.
Okay, I was gonna ask for 2 more, but I'm good. Well, you know, took 2 out of me. I'm good. Whatever. Alejandro.
Ready. When I got a line. All right, so we're going to keep this shot up here. So from what I'm being told by my producers, we are just getting in a statement from Columbia University. This was from moments ago. From moments ago. All right, I'm going to keep the shot up. We're not going to put up the statement just yet, but I'm going to read the statement because we don't want to miss anything in case some of these students, you see the photographers there turning their lights on. So we could be seeing some of these students exit the gates there after being arrested. So Columbia University responding to this NYPD action tonight. They say this in a statement. A little after 9 p.m. this evening, the NYPD arrived on campus at the university's request. This decision was made to restore safety and order to our community. It goes on to say, we regret that protesters have chosen to escalate the situation through their actions. After the university learned overnight that Hamilton Hall had been occupied, vandalized, and blockaded, we were left with no choice. Columbia public safety personnel were forced out of the building, and a member of our facilities team was threatened. We will not risk the safety of our community or the potential for further escalation. The statement goes on to say the leadership team, including the Board of Trustees, met throughout the night and into the early morning, consulting with security experts and law enforcement to determine the best plan to protect our students and the entire Columbia community. We made the decision early in the morning that this was a law enforcement matter and that the NYPD were best positioned to determine and execute an appropriate response. Let's put the statement up while we wait. The final paragraph says this. All right, here, the final paragraph says this. We believe the group that broke into and occupied the building is led by individuals who are not affiliated with the university. Sadly, this dangerous decision followed more than a week of what had been productive discussions with representatives of the West Lawn encampment there. So, all right. Okay, we have more of the statement. All right, let's read more of the statement here. They go on to say this. we severely curtailed the number of people on Morningside campus starting Tuesday morning. Over the course of the day, we updated our community on access to campus buildings, and we'll continue to do so through the next few days. The decision to reach out to the NYPD was in response to the actions of the protesters, not the cause they are championing. We have made it clear that the life of campus cannot be endlessly interrupted by protesters who violate the rules and the law there. It goes on to say, early Tuesday, protesters chose to escalate to an alarming and untenable situation, including by vandalizing property. It goes on to say, breaking doors and windows, blockading entrances, and forcing our facilities and public safety workers out. We are responding appropriately, as we have long made clear we would. The safety of our community, especially our students, remains our top priority. All right, you see there that caveat, especially our students. You pair that with the other line in the statement that Columbia University officials believe the main agitators, the main occupiers of Hamilton Hall, are not affiliated with the university. That is quite something. I mean, that is what I latched onto there in that statement, back out live to our shot there outside the gates of Columbia University. So we await any more movement, any more action. We're approaching the top of the next hour. It's almost 10 o'clock there on the ground in the Big Apple on the Upper West Side.
Guys, let me know what you think's going on. What do you think about it? About these kids not getting arrested? Well, they show them getting arrested, but the charges are being dropped.
All right, we're going to stay, obviously, with this story. We're preempting some of our other coverage. There's a lot of stories left to get to tonight, but this is the main one, the predominating feature of this story. The NYPD, at the request of Columbia University, being called in to oust some of these demonstrators from Hamilton Hall after they occupied that campus building last night forcibly. You heard there from university administrators. Some of these demonstrators threatened facilities staff and others in the building. The university maintains they believe the leaders of the occupiers in Hamilton Hall are not affiliated with the university. So that's quite something. That is why the NYPD were called in at the request of the university itself. Remember, private institutions have to do that. They cannot, law enforcement cannot just go in, much like they could on a public university campus. All right, let's listen. Seems like NYPD officials are speaking to the media.
Try to force it out of me, it doesn't work. Right? All right, guys, you got it? No tear gas was used. No tear gas. The NYPD does not use tear gas. Okay, we use distraction devices. All right, could you elaborate? Distraction device is something that's thrown in, makes a very loud bang, and it distracts the individual so the police can then move forward. Right?
It's known as a flashbang.
As I get more, I will let you know.
We used these at the Department of Corrections when I was still working.
All right, somewhat of a key distinction being made there by an NYPD official clarifying to the media that no tear gas was used. He then went on to describe what is known as a flashbang, a very loud sound with the flare that causes a distraction as law enforcement usually tries to disperse crowds. All right, so now we finally see some of these individuals who are in handcuffs, in the zip tie handcuffs, so we apologize there. All right, let's go out to yet another vantage point we have of that same NYPD official. Speaking to the media yet again, I'm not entirely sure if that's on delay or not. It was on delay. It was the same official. Okay, so interesting distinction. It seemed like the NYPD possibly might have been preempting some of the descriptions by the student protesters. Maybe that is why they got out there on the record very soon saying no tear gas was used. We did see tear gas being used today on the campus of the University of South Florida. That is not this campus. This is Columbia University. He said flashbangs were used. They produce a very loud sound with a flash in order to disperse a crowd and distract the crowd. And he said those were used. Tear gas was not used.
They should have used tear gas.
So we finally have a better vantage point. The reason they're so far back and we're so far zoomed in is because the media is kept quite back. All right, Fox 5 in New York, they are on this story here. I'm Andrew Kraft. Let's go out to them for more coverage.
Police move in. You can see officers going in on a ladder, climbing through the window of Hamilton Hall, which protesters stormed overnight. Good evening. Thanks for being with us. I'm Steve Lacey.
And I'm Natasha Verma. Of course, this has all been escalating ever since the protests began at Columbia almost 2 weeks ago. But tonight, PD has moved in just hours after Mayor Adams told protesters, quote, "This must end now." And it's not just Columbia. This is video just into our newsroom of CCNY in Harlem, where police are moving in with barricades. And we've got a live look at Columbia right now, where the NYPD operation is well underway.
All right, we have Fox 5 live team coverage tonight. Linda Schmidt and Jessica Formoso, both live in Morningside Heights, just outside Columbia. Teresa Priolo is at CCNY, where protesters are currently clashing with police. Let's start, though, with Linda, who is on the Hamilton Hall side, where protesters have been holed up tonight. Linda.
That's right. Good evening, first of all, to both of you. And there are literally hundreds of police officers out here, most of them in riot gear. Now, about 9:13, and I'm being very specific here, I know, 9:13, we received an email from the NYPD saying, quote, "The operation at Columbia has commenced." And that's when we saw police in riot gear move in here. Go ahead and take a look at this video here. This is a major piece of equipment that is used by the NYPD's ESU. And what this truck does is it allows them to get up next to a building and be able to access a building above the first floor. And that's what they did here. They all of the officers moving up the ramp after it was lowered next to the window, and then they broke through the window to get into Hamilton Hall. What they are doing here is they are retaking Hamilton Hall from the protesters who violently broke into Hamilton Hall overnight. They had used hammers to break glass doors in order to gain access to Hamilton Hall. And once they are inside there, they are moving through Hamilton Hall right now. They are searching for the protesters, most of whom both the mayor and the police commissioner say are outside professional agitators who have come in and who have hijacked what were supposed to be peaceful protests here on the university. And they believe that most of the people, the students here, that they were manipulated by these professional agitators. They are inside Hamilton Hall right now. They will be making arrests. At some point, they will be coming out of Hamilton Hall, but we don't know when that is going to happen yet. But I want you to go ahead and take a look at the other video as well. This is from overnight, showing those protesters, again, violently breaking into Hamilton Hall. They used hammers to break through a glass door. And then once they got inside.
Okay, I'm going to get you guys a better look here. I'm tired of them running their mouths and not giving us live. I had AP up here. I'm going to try to find it real quick here. Here it is. We'll put this one up. Get some better view there.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that's not a problem. I'll just keep it close. Calm down a little bit, from that initial round of speed that I brought up. Watching the video. Yeah, I just spoke to Antonio. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, he's like, I don't know anything else. You know, I'll tell you. He said, no numbers on the rest yet. You're going to say you're from no idea about what's happening. It seems like it's pretty chaotic.
I think it's a little better view for you guys. What do you think? Think these kids are going to get released tomorrow? Let me know what you guys think. They're going to get no bail, and the charges will be dropped. That's what my opinion is on all this, just like yesterday. I think they should use pepper spray, tear gas, all of it. Make your eyes burn. We're going to get you another shot here because these people are just playing around here. We're going to get Fox News. Gutfield is covering it. Here, real quick here. Get in here. See what nothing's going on yet with this. And I just found it on my TV. Now I'm not going to be able to find it here. There it is.
Barricades are trying to. This is on the other side. This is Amsterdam. Okay. Well, there are tons of cops over here now because now there's a lot of protesters. And those are the protesters that are coming from, the outer areas. These are people who don't go to the school, who are kind of trying to take advantage, according to police, of what's happening here. They're coming with their face masks, and police don't even know who's mixed into this crowd. So if the NYPD didn't have enough to deal with across the city of New York, now they have this to deal with too.
Yeah, Alexis, you've been doing a great job for us all week. We really appreciate it. Thanks for your patience. Stand by. We'll be coming back to you throughout the night tonight. Now, also, this ongoing response from the New York Police Department will likely result in numerous arrests, but will any of these violent agitators, those that took over Hamilton Hall at Columbia University, are they ever going to be prosecuted?
No.
Are they going to be allowed out of jail within hours with no bail? It seems like that will be that's the pattern that has emerged before. Anyway, here with reaction to all of these events that are unfolding at this hour, Hoover Institution Senior Fellow Victor Davis Hanson is with us. Victor, thank you for being with us. I'm sure, like most of America tonight, you're watching in a bit of horror. Number one, that the fact that the students were allowed to get to this point. Number two, the fact that there's virulent anti-Semitism on campuses all across the country. Number three, the fact that Israel in many ways has been turned into, the aggressor when they themselves were the victim of a vicious, vile terrorist attack, the worst in their history. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of moral clarity the last few weeks, Sean, and especially tonight. I think we got to get rid of the myth that you can be anti-Israel and you're not anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism and anti-Israelism is the same now. And being for Hamas and for Palestine, that's fused. People out there are not just for Palestine, they're for Hamas. I think we got to get rid of the idea that these are elite universities. For the last 3 years, they've dropped the SAT. They've gone to DEI admissions. Most of the students are not learning. They're not elite universities, and I think they've ruined their brand. I think we got to get rid of the idea we've seen the last 2 weeks, especially tonight, that this goes on because the faculty, the administrators, the college presidents, the DAs, the mayors, the governors of these blue states, blue campuses, and blue cities sympathize with the cause, and they just don't have it. It's not that they're cowardly, they sympathize with it, and they can't do it. And finally, Sean, I don't think we have to get rid of the paradigm that there's a base of radicals in the Democratic Party, and then there's the old establishment. That also has fused together. The Democratic Party and Joe Biden, Corinne Jean-Pierre, all of them, they're simply incapable of criticizing Hamas, criticizing what's going on. The Democratic Party has now been reborn as a radical, progressive, something that's not even akin to what it used to be. It's on the same page now.
Yeah. I think you're raising a good point. It's a sad moment when America, which should always be the leader of the free world, basically since October 7th has kind of surrendered that position. But even before that, Victor Davis Hanson, if we just look at the history, and I've never understood the first Iranian deal that America made. That was when Obama was president and Joe Biden was vice president. It made no sense to me. and Joe Biden becomes president. And immediately, you know, by March of 2021, he's importing oil from Iran. He turns a blind eye to sanctions, allows them to get rich. Hundreds of millions of dollars in oil sales, which is only money that is being used to foment terror and build out their nuclear capability. That is a scary scenario. The idea that he gives a waiver on the sanctions, allowing Iraq to give them $10 billion. His plans that he wanted to give them $6 billion for a ransom for hostages. None of this, Victor Davis Hanson, makes any sense to me, because he's enriching the #1 state sponsor of terror. And now not only do they fund proxy wars with Hamas in the south in Gaza and Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon and the Houthi rebels out of Yemen, but now they went the extra step and they were firing 300 missiles into Iran. And Joe Biden's response was, don't react. Take the win that you didn't get hit with their missiles. Aren't these actions only emboldening the #1 state sponsor of terror? When these radicals see these videos on American campuses and hear from elected American officials what is virulent anti-Semitism, doesn't that embolden them too?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, though, Sean, is that it all makes sense now, because what you just articulated abroad has a counterpart at home. So the reason that they feel those things that we think are crazy, pro-Iran, not dealing with the Houthis, encouraging Hezbollah and Hamas, anti-Israelism, the whole gamut, that's a reflection of a domestic policy as well, that they're indifferent to anti-Semitism. They're afraid to call it out. There's members of the Democratic Party who are anti-Semites. They feel that no bail, critical legal theory, defund the police, that's all part and parcel of the domestic aspect of this radical Jacobin revolutionary agenda. We see it now for the first time, really, naked, bare, without any pretense at home. But this ideology that you're watching right now explains what's going on overseas as well. It's the same ideology that fuels our foreign policy. And it's got to stop, because it's hurting America abroad and it's destroying us at home. But it's the same thing as what I'm trying to say, Sean.
It's making, Victor, it's making the world a more dangerous place. And in the process, we have a new axis of evil that has emerged, and an alliance between China and Russia and Iran, as Iran, according to the IAEA, is getting closer and closer to nuclear capability. That should scare the entire world, because that radical ideology of convert or die, coupled with nuclear weapons, could result in a modern-day Holocaust. That's a scary thought. Victor Davis Hanson, thank you for staying up late with us. All right, we go to a Fox News alert.
Movavi Video Editor is a powerfully simple app at a rock-bottom price. Cut.
Moved on to Hamilton Hall a little over, about 22 hours ago. Hamilton Hall at the University of Columbia was taken over by radical extremists on campus. So where does Columbia go from here? And what does this mean for other similar pro-Hamas encampments all across the country? Here with Reaction Now, Fox News contributor Ted Williams and Israeli special ops veteran Aaron Cohn. Aaron, let me start with you tonight. I got to imagine that Israel has been paying very close attention to the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses, in the halls of Congress, all across Europe, and hearing the chants of from the river to the sea, calls for Antifada, raising a Palestinian flag, taking down American flags, support for Hamas, death to Israel, death to America. I've got to imagine they have got to be alarmed. They're fighting really a three-front war: Gaza in the south, Hezbollah in the north, and Iran willing now to fire weapons from Iran. That's a scary time for the world.
Yeah, Sean, let me start with this. Israel stands behind the NYPD. I've been training law enforcement for 20 years in this space, Sean. This is very stressful business that you're seeing out here right now. As far as Israel's focusing on Rafah right now. They may be making entry into Rafah, and the reason why is because there's still 5,000 terrorists hunkered down And Israel's probably going to be looking at ways to start moving those civilians and get into a safe zone and then start conducting selective operations because, we don't have kids yelling in Gaza right now. We've got terrorists who are hunkered down in tunnels and standing behind civilians as human shields. So there's still a lot of work to be done. It's very stressful. Obviously, the visuals of what we're seeing here at Columbia, it's very difficult. I know the prime minister's spoken to it, but this plague has spread. But Sean, like I said a couple of days ago when we were on, this is the systematic incitement and recruitment of terrorism rhetoric. But I really do think that these glazed over kids who have been completely indoctrinated have crossed the line between free speech. NYPD, I just got off the phone with a captain buddy of mine who I've known for many years in the training space. NYPD's tired of these kids. And you know what? For them to be able to finally go in and make entry, it's time. It's time to see this type of action around the country. Texas won't put up with it. We saw what happened with some of the universities and some of the red states. They're not going to put up with this because those leaders are leading. That's what I spoke to with Steve Garvey at a press conference a couple of days ago. It's a different mindset when it comes to leadership. And when it comes to escalation and de-escalation, you have to get on top of this, like President Trump said. It needs to be done aggressively. But here's another concern, Sean. My counterterror flags are cracking right now. I'm looking at multiple crowds. So not only does NYPD's special response group, who AOC called out saying they were too aggressive. I say that's exactly what's needed. These guys are trained. They're similar to LA's Metro unit. They can go in there safely, but there's lots of crowds that are clustering around this operation, which is very dangerous in my opinion, Sean. And those crowds are where aggression likes to go. And whether it's an active shooter, whether it's a bomb, there's a lot of moving pieces. And I feel like the stress level being as high as it is, along with the fatigue event,
don't be screwing up now.
Need to be looked at in a macro picture. And I'm sure NYPD's got a grip on it right now, but terrorists love cameras on crowds, Sean. This is very dangerous as it unfolds.
What's unfolding tonight, Aaron, is dangerous, and maybe what's really, really sad is that these students are ignorant to a level that I really can't comprehend, and that being there was a victim on October 7th. The victim was the country of Israel, and why there's not moral clarity and an understanding and the need to defeat the radical terrorists that attacked Israel, the very same people that had fired tens and tens of thousands of rockets over the years into Israel and end it once and for all to keep their country and their countrymen safe is pretty unbelievable to me. Aaron Cohn, thank you. We appreciate your time. Joining us. What we are witnessing tonight, you know as well as anybody, is a very dangerous law enforcement operation. It seems to be being handled perfectly so far. Having police, not being able to go through the front door, through the windows. They have taken out, according to Alexis McAdams, on the ground, dozens of people. But I don't think this night is anywhere near over. And it's a dangerous night for the NYPD for sure.
Yeah, well, I would say that it was done extremely well. Obviously, a lot of planning had been put into this. As you said, the doors were barricaded. So what did the police do? They use that elevated platform to go through the window. And also, it looks like there's no resistance. There was no reports of fighting or tussling. We may hear that later. So I think it was certainly a feather in the cap to this administration, police administration, that is, for carrying this out so far flawlessly. I still think that this is a product of a conspiracy, of a nationwide conspiracy, in the sense that Students for Justice Palestine, some other organizations not quite as big, but you don't have that sort of spontaneous reaction, without some sort of coordination. And that, in my view, is what's going on. I think the FBI should be looking at it as a conspiracy because crimes are being committed. This is a crime. This is a burglary. Whether or not that's charged is something else. We're in Alvin Bragg territory here, so we don't know what's going to happen with these demonstrators. If what we've giving to these individuals, and the way they'll have to come back to court maybe 30, 40, 50 days from now. And
Commissioner,
hello?
You know what though? This
Yeah.
is a very different time in New York than when you were commissioner. The likelihood is these busloads of students being arrested, they're going to be released within hours. And the students that had been arrested previously had their records expunged immediately. They didn't even need a court appearance. This is not the same New York that you were that you led the NYPD under. I think we lost Ray Kelly. All right, we go to Fox News. All right, as you can see, we're watching. The NYPD now has gone into Hamilton Hall. Arrests are being made as we speak. Here with more reaction, Fox News contributor Ted Williams is with us. Ted, as we were talking about with the former commissioner, it is a very different time. Let's get your reaction to what is, I believe, a very dangerous and difficult operation, and that is to get in there and clear that hall out. It seems so far to be going flawlessly. Let's hope and pray for everybody's sake that it continues tonight.
Sean, what you are witnessing in the night here in New York is New York's finest law enforcement officers doing what they do best. What we have here, and I've heard you call them students, what we have specifically at Hamilton Hall here are a bunch of thugs, and we need to call them just what they are, thugs. They broke into that building. That's New York's finest. They held 2 or 3 of the custodians in that building for a while hostage. That's false imprisonment. These thugs have to be charged, and they have to be made an example of. I'm sick and tired of this crap about them being students and them being on one side of the issue or another. They went into that building. You could see them breaking and entering that building. They must be charged. Alvin Bragg cannot allow these thugs to be out in the community within hours of these arrests. When you look at the fact that we are a nation of laws, and what we found here over the past week is individuals trying to intimidate a certain faction of our society. We cannot permit that to happen. It has happened in essence in one instance here, but we need to take advantage of this and do better. And by the way, Sean, Hamas is here. We need to realize this. Hamas is here in the United States. How in the hell did all of these students get the money to do the things that they've done? There needs to be a complete and thorough investigation as to how and why this is happening in our country at this immediate time. And I don't think we have that. That is significant and important, Sean.
It really is. Ted Williams, you're raising a great point. What has happened to America's moral compass? I think that is a great point. Anyway, Ted Williams, stand by. We'll get back to you. We go back first to Alexis McAdams. She's been on the ground at Columbia all night tonight. Alexis, I've witnessed now a number of NYPD buses leaving. Each time they leave, I hear a lot of cheering. I assume that cheering is coming from other students that are cheering on the people that had taken over Hamilton Hall that are now being escorted to police headquarters, where I would assume they're likely, sadly, going to get released tonight. But how many buses have you seen leave? You talked about a couple of dozen people, I guess, by now that you have witnessed going on to those buses being arrested tonight.
Yeah, we just asked an NYPD source here just a short time ago, and they said that they've had dozens of arrests. So on that first bus, we saw, I think there was, according to the source who was out here on the ground, he said there was almost 30 people on that one bus, and now I've seen at least 2 more packed up. So I'm going to try to step. I know it's kind of dark here, but step out of the way. If we can zoom just a little bit here, you can see down there are people getting onto that bus right now. Those are students that have just been taken out of Hamilton Hall. They were in there, right, for hours. They were told by this administration and the president of the university to get out or get expelled. Now it's not just expelled, but get arrested, get zip tied and brought right down to police headquarters, where they're going to get with some pretty serious charges. I'm going to step back into the shot here so we can also talk. It's not just here, right, at the Hamilton Hall where they're going to make these arrests, Sean. It's also at that Gaza Solidarity encampment where they had more than 100 tents set up there the other day. When they were told, if you don't get out of that encampment, you're going to get suspended, they did clear some of those tents out. But the university made the decision this morning, according to the president, in that memo we just got, saying they knew since early this morning they were going to call the NYPD in. So these officers had quite a long time to prepare for this. And this isn't the first time they've gone into this campus. But one of the things to point out, too, was when they went into Hamilton Hall, okay, you saw those officers going in one by one, right, into the building through the window. Why? Well, NYPD sources tell me it's because they had that area so barricaded, the doors blocked, the windows blocked. That's why they had to go into where they could, going up basically on a ladder you would use for like the fire department to go into those windows. And then when they got in, they didn't know what was inside either, but heavily fortified, they said, heavily barricaded, and they don't even know exactly how many people were in there. So it is, 10:30 and counting here. We don't know how many arrests are going to happen, but dozens so far, and NYPD moving hundreds of cops right onto that campus.
Yeah, Alexis, it's too early to determine whether or not this police operation has been completely successful, without incident, without injury. But so far, it looks as though that this operation was well thought out, and police have been successful so far in getting the students out of Hamilton Hall onto the buses, seemingly without injury or incident. We can hope that's the final result when all is said and done. Alexis, thank you. Stand by. We'll get back to you in a few moments. Take a look at your screen. Here is video shot only moments ago by our very own cameras. Now, you see these agitators were arrested only moments ago. Again, we're told, Alexis just told us, there have been dozens of arrests tonight. And here with more reaction to what's going on in the situation in New York on the campus of Columbia University. What does it mean politically for Joe Biden, who has been virtually silent on most of this? Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee is with us. Governor, I start with you, and we can only pray that this all ends peacefully for people on, for everybody involved here. The officers certainly had a very difficult job ahead of them as this began tonight. So far, it looks like the arrests have gone as planned. We can hope that happens. However, we do have other problems that exist here. How this was able to build into this movement. What does it say about, a mindset in this country that is literally supporting radical extremism abroad and even on college campuses? What does it say when a rabbi in Columbia University's campus has to tell Jewish students to stay home? It's not safe to be here. And it's not just Columbia, it's Harvard, it's Yale, it's USC, it's Berkeley, it's UT, it's all over the country. Your reaction, Governor?
It looks like the police are doing their job, but here's the problem. They'll do their job, but Alvin Bragg won't do his. He's so busy going after Donald Trump that he'll have these kids out in time for hot donuts and a warm cup of milk before midnight. And that's pretty tragic, because unless there's some serious consequences, unless they're criminally prosecuted, unless they get treated like the January 6th defendants, they get to spend months and months in jail before they even get a trial date. Unless those kind of things happen, unless they get expelled, unless their parents are made to pay for the damages. I love what Alan Dershowitz said, let's sue them. But here's another thing. If Donald Trump were president, you know what else would be happening? There would be federal civil rights charges being filed against these people, because he knows that the state's not going to do anything, not Kathy Hochul, certainly not Alvin Bragg, not Letitia James. They have their own agenda. But the federal government could be doing something and could be charging for the civil rights violation of Jewish students. And every parent of Columbia, who's paying $90,000 a year to send their little darling to this school full of little snots, they need to get their kids home. Need to get them home, and then they need to sue the school, get their money back, and file a class action suit on behalf of all parents and alumni for the disgraceful way that Columbia University has just dripped right down into the toilet bowl.
Yeah, you're raising a lot of good points. Charlie, let me go to you. And I brought this point up many, many times. We watched in the Summer of Love in 2020, we had 574 official riots around this country. We had dozens of dead Americans. We had cops that were pelted with bricks, rocks, bottles, Molotov cocktails, thousands of injured police officers, billions of dollars in property damage. But we had fixation on one insurrection, one riot, and that was January 6th. They had all the videotape evidence available to go after the people that were responsible for the rioting in the summer of 2020. It shows a clear double standard. When this all began at Columbia and some students were arrested, they were immediately released and immediately their records were expunged. So it seems Liz Cheney's been awfully quiet about, quote, insurrection unless it involves Donald Trump. And it's kind of sad because I would argue that any riot, any time, any place is wrong. And now we learn that they withheld evidence. Now we learn that they ignored 5 people that would have testified that Donald Trump called up the National Guard. They never interviewed the Capitol Police Chief who requested the National Guard. A lot of questions that they never went into now is becoming revealed. But 574 riots, we were told they were mostly peaceful. Well, are they going to claim that this is peaceful tonight too? Are they going to say it's okay for students to take over an entire hall at a university the way they took it over violently last night?
Well, let's be clear. If these were Trump supporters shutting down an American campus, or these were Republican voters who were behaving like this on an American campus, hectoring students for their religion, none of this would be happening. This would all be wiped clean immediately. The FBI would be on the scene. Everybody would be arrested and thrown under the jail. It would be a whole different scene. But of course, I think probably the most important thing that we will remember from history when we look back at this time is
a defenseless young girl was brutally raped and killed by an illegal alien and known member.
And taken the system of justice and used it as a political weapon to go after all of their political enemies. And in this case, of course, Democrats are they made a deal with the devil. They're desperate to get these urchins here, these loudmouths, these punks. They're desperate to get them to vote for them. So they're in a real pickle and they don't know what to do. Obviously, they should be charged to the fullest extent, just the way we all said should happen for January 6th. Anybody that was trespassing, charge them with trespassing. The problem is they went so far beyond that and charged them with all this other stuff for which there was no evidence whatsoever. And they've tortured, what they've put these people through is just astonishing. But the other thing I'd like to say is that, the Columbia University has a massive endowment. It's tax-free. They created the situation. They allowed this to happen. I can only imagine what this operation is costing the taxpayers of New York City. I hope that Columbia University will be forced to pay NYPD for every dime of overtime, of personnel, everything, every cost that they're having to spend for this should come right out of Columbia's endowment.
That's such a good point. And how many taxpayer dollars? I think you can, it's a fair time to ask the question. These universities like Harvard, I think the last time I checked, Governor Huckabee had some, $37 billion in endowment money. Why are taxpayer dollars going to these institutions? And here's another sad part, and I don't want to really get too political tonight. I'm really hoping for a peaceful end to what has been a very difficult night for the NYPD, having to clear this hall out. And that would be my first prayer for everybody. But the idea that taxpayers are footing the bill for these institutions of higher learning and the American taxpayers footing that bill, and then you can add to that, student loan forgiveness. Well, why should plumbers, carpenters, electricians, and nurses and people that paid their own way through school be funding universities that actually foster an environment where extremism like this can exist?
Well, I think Charlie's made a great point about the endowments, and I hope that the endowments have been drained to virtually nothing by the time the lawsuits are finished and people are suing these institutions for the manner in which they did not protect the students that were there for an education. I hope that also there would be a real understanding about the message these kids are talking about. They say, divest. We demand that you divest from any dealings with Israel. Okay, let's start right here. You wouldn't have a cell phone if not for the technology that was developed in Israel. So are all of those students, are they willing to give up their cell phones, seedless watermelons, tomato grapes, irrigation for agriculture, heart stents, and about 1,000 other things that were developed in Israel? Because if you really are serious about divesting, you're going to be living in virtually the land of the Flintstones when you could be living in the land of the Jetsons. And that's because these young kids don't have a clue what they're talking about when it comes to Israel, which is a very free, a very innovative, and an extraordinary nation that they ought to be saluting and thanking God for, rather than demanding that it be annihilated.
Yeah, Charlie, as we watch this unfold, we still have no idea how many more students may be inside. We've seen dozens arrested so far, a very difficult police operation. Thankfully, so far, according to all reports we have, it has been a peaceful effort by the NYPD. They have successfully extracted the students that have taken over this hall. We hope it ends that way for the benefit of all sides, but it's still unknown, as this is an ongoing effort, what's actually going on inside there.
Yeah, and you make a really good point about not wanting to make this political tonight. But of course, this is happening in an election year. The blame for this lies at the feet of not just politicians currently, but going back years, empowering these universities to do what they do and to miseducate a generation of students into the craziness that you get from these idiot on the street interviews with these morons. But the thing that we can't take away the fact that this is happening in an election year, and Joe Biden is to blame for it. And my favorite thing is the thing you just mentioned, which is, this is going on at a time when Joe Biden has violated the order of the Supreme Court, broken the law, violated the Constitution in order to do all this student loan forgiveness nonsense, where, as you point out, plumbers and carpenters are having to pay for ridiculous college educations for students to hate Israel and hate Jews. Well, that's a great election year. That's a bumper sticker. You're paying for this. And all of these scenes that we're seeing on TV tonight, we've been seeing last couple of weeks, and it's not going away. We're going to be seeing it for months. Donald Trump can just say again and again, thanks to Joe Biden, you're paying for every bit of this.
Yeah. All right. We appreciate both of you. Thank you, Charlie Hurt and Governor Mike Huckabee. Thank you. We check back in with Sarah Carter with the very latest on all of the pro-Hamas, pro-Antifada riots around the country and what's been happening here. Sarah, as we look at all of this, you have spent a lot of time talking to these students at Columbia, and what has amazed me, and I think has amazed a lot of other people as well, is when you ask them important questions. Why are you here? What are you protesting? What are you standing for? Girls, why are you here? Because we go to Columbia, but we heard they need help at NYU. Great. What did NYU do? I don't know, really. And she asked her friend, well, what did NYU do? Why are we here? I don't know. There is a lot of that. But also within those groups, you find people that know damn well what they're doing. And the organizers and the agitators that often are a part of these movements, you know, some of these students are followers, and some of them actually, what are they buying into virulent anti-Semitism?
Oh, absolutely, Sean, 100%. We've seen the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States. In fact, FBI Director Christopher Wray spoke about that at a hearing. He's talked about it over and over again, the concerns that he has had and the FBI has had with threats against students, Jewish students, faculty.
Movavi Video Editor is an easy tool for beginner creators like you.
Interviewing people on what we call the pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas side of things, where they can't answer proper questions. What river, what sea, what does it mean from the river to the sea? What does that mean exactly? They don't want to answer the questions. I've asked directly as well to faculty members that have led some of these organizations here and protests throughout campuses across the United States. Do you believe Hamas is a terrorist organization? And they refuse to answer those questions. They refuse to answer whether Hamas is a terrorist organization. You had former Commissioner Ray Kelly, you had Nicole Parker, Ted Williams, law enforcement officials on the show tonight, throughout the night, stressing the concerns that they have about rise of terror within the United States, terrorism and terrorist organizations. Many of these groups, one of the big concerns that I've heard is finding sympathizers, recruits, people that are looking for people to join these extremist organizations. I've talked to Jewish students on campus that are saying, look, what we want the campuses to do is have oversight over the organizations here that are protesting, that are threatening us. And like I said earlier, some of these Jewish students have been told, go back to Germany, get back in an oven. I mean, I can't even believe what I am hearing right now in our modern day and age, that people are actually saying this openly, loudly, without any hesitation. Some Jewish students say it reminds them of when they read books, you know, and history of the 1930s, and who's going to speak up for them? They're asking for President Biden to do that, to stand up, to address the nation, to put a stop to this. But obviously, he has not done that. We've seen the failure of our universities and our college campuses, of the leadership to do the same. And I think that right now, the big concern is tomorrow, Sean, May 1st. There's a lot of flyers and a lot of posts on social media asking students to come out to join these anti-Israel, anti-Jewish protests. Some of the Jewish students are calling it Jew hate protests. And I think law enforcement, federal law enforcement, state and local, are all concerned about what could happen tomorrow, Sean.
Yeah. All right. We appreciate all your reporting. Sarah Carter tonight. You just saw up on the screen that the Columbia president said that these students that had taken over Hamilton Hall were a clear and present danger to the university, to say the least. We might have some good news here. Let's go back to Alexis McAdams, live on the ground outside Columbia. Alexis, my understanding is you might be hearing that police have successfully cleared Hamilton Hall. Is that true?
I think it might be a wrap.
All right, we're trying to reconnect with Alexis. We'll get back to that. But apparently, with the latest arrest, it looks like that's very possible. We'll let you know the minute that we know. All right, here with the very latest, before we go back to Alexis, is former NYPD inspector, Fox News contributor Paul Mauro, Fox News contributor, former FBI special agent Nicole Parker. Paul, I'll start with you. Paul, we did see now dozens and dozens of arrests that were made by the NYPD. I find that the comments of Columbia's president a little, too late, allowing it to get to this point. It never should have. She's saying it was a clear and present danger to the university. But if when we get back to Alexis, if in fact police have successfully cleared that building, I would say, wow, an amazing feat by the NYPD tonight.
Yeah, like I said, the institutional knowledge is there. You know, we've been through this. I was through it in 25 years with the PD. But, you know, you have to say to yourself, and Charlie Hurt made this point, consider the wasted resources here as we're trying to bring down crime and quality of life in the city, which has taken a real hit. You have hundreds of cops there, and what a lot of people don't realize is about 25 blocks north of this, a similar scene was taking place,
at CCNY, City College of New York, and about 140th Street. So all of these cops are doing this. And by the way, Sean, I can tell your audience that Columbia's president.
Paul, also FIT, also NYU. I mean,
that's right.
And then we got UCLA, then you got USC, then you got Yale, then you got UT, and you got colleges all around the country doing this.
And the president of Columbia has asked the NYPD to stay at Columbia now through May 17, because she's concerned about the commencement, the graduation, I'm sure, which is, I believe, May 15. So for the next 2-3 weeks, you're going to have all of those cops up there. Never mind all these arrests they're going to have to process. And you know, Sean, to go back to what some of your guests have been talking about regarding the terrorist connection, is it solid? It's not that I have seen, but I did a decade and a half of counterterrorism work, and I'm telling you, there are some very troubling connections. A known terrorist convicted in this country, deported to Turkey, has 2 relatives, immediate relatives of his I'm not going to say the name, of the nuclear family on the scene there. And I just hope that the federal government is looking into this hard, because the possibilities for radicalization, I want to choose my words carefully. I'm not seeing any evidence of any operations being taken or anything like that, but I see common communication mechanisms, the sharing of social media outlets, and I see the possibilities for radicalization going forward. If the DHS has been telling us the biggest threat to this country internally is domestic violent extremists, which is their euphemism generally for white supremacy, this has been left alone. We put counterterrorism in the rearview mirror. You had Ray Kelly on. He understood this threat post 9/11, and we worked it and we worked it. We took our foot off the pedal, and we're seeing the results.
Stay there, Paul. And Nicole Parker, we'll get to you in a minute. Alexis McAdams is with us. Alexis, my understanding is that the police looks like they have everybody under arrest, that they've successfully may not have removed everybody from Hamilton Hall, but they have the situation under control. Is that a fair statement? Because if that's true, in the 2 hours we have been on the air, or the hour and 48 minutes we've been on the air, that would be an amazing accomplishment.
Well, that's exactly what we're told from NYPD sources. I just checked in with them right before this hit. They're telling me that they've cleared every protester out of Hamilton Hall and also cleared the protesters out of the Gaza Solidarity encampment, but they still left those tents there because that's the property now that Columbia will then have to remove. But I'm going to take you this way just a little bit so you can see. I mean, talking about, right, Sean, you said it right, 2 hours or less to move all of this out of here. Well, that's because look at the force they brought in. They had these officers on standby. They closed off this area for several blocks after the university demanded that those kids get out of Hamilton Hall. When the university couldn't do their job, the police had to do it for them. So this is still a live look here at what we're seeing on the Upper West Side at Columbia University. But as of right now, we can tell you that after the university's president called the NYPD asking them to go in and clear out the encampment, clear out that hall, that's what they did. They did it in 2 hours or less. And we're waiting to get more information from the NYPD. They arrested dozens of protesters, I'm told. Don't have an exact number. They're going to book them down at that processing center with the NYPD at their headquarters and get hit with a variety of charges. Some of them might just be for trespassing because some of those kids were expelled or suspended, right, just the other day and came back onto campus. But they also damaged property. You saw it in that video. They smashed through those windows and damaged that property there. So they could be facing more serious charges.
All right, Alexis McAdams, if that is true, all true, in an hour and 52 minutes, the NYPD was able to accomplish this operation. Pretty spectacular and seems so successfully. Stay there. We'll get back to you, Nicole Parker. From a law enforcement standpoint, it's been a very tense night in New York, dozens of arrests, and it looks like the police have now gotten control over all of that. Your reaction? I think what a
Okay, everybody, I want to thank you for tuning in. It seems like they've got everything wrapped up for tonight. I want to ask you guys to join me tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for a Conservative Viewpoint live. And I will check on this. If they've got more stuff going on, we'll just put off the Conservative Viewpoint and just go straight to this. and watch what's going on. Maybe we'll get some answers on if these people are actually going to be charged with anything, or if they're going to have their charges dropped just like everybody else has and the past arrests that they've made since this started. So you guys can leave some comments about what you think about what's going on here, and we will see what's going to happen tomorrow. But it seems like they've got everything wrapped up for tonight, and we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll try to get you some more answers of what's going on. And hopefully by tomorrow night, we'll get something going on. And like I said, if it was, I'll put off Conservative Viewpoint, which is my live broadcast at 7 o'clock weeknights, if you guys want to join in. So until tomorrow, thank you for tuning in. We'll keep an eye on this, and I'll let you guys go. So, all right. So hopefully I'll see you tomorrow night, and we'll see what we can get done. Night, everyone.